So we're gonna get started this morning in a child's pose. So if you want to go ahead and come to your mat, coming to your tabletop first. I should have mentioned it might be helpful today to have a bolster and blocks if you have them, and if you don't, that's fine. We can always um, do things without, or you could grab a rolled up blanket or something soft or a couple pillows, just anything to really support yourself. We want to kind of be really restorative with our practice today and very supported. That light is really kind of glaring, so I'm going to close my curtains real quick while you guys get situated in your child's lighting a little bit. That's better. So when you take your child's, just trying to find that spot for yourself where your knees are just the right distance apart, where your upper body is supported, your hips are supported. If your hips don't come down to your heels, I would definitely recommend something between your hips and heels, just so that you can really settle into this and relax completely so that you're really supported. Take your time. No rush at all this morning. We're going to be in these for a little while, so just finding that spot for yourself that's just right, where you can settle in to stillness. Have a nice softness to your shoulders, bend to your elbows. I like this form for starting a practice that we're focusing on breath, because for me it's a great spot to really be able to encourage myself to relax my belly, because I have that tendency to kind of hold my belly in a lot. So this spot just it's almost impossible to not just let your belly relax. And if this isn't the most comfortable spot for you in the world, it's totally fine. You could come to your back instead and just draw your knees into your chest. Or you could just kind of hang out here for a little bit and just kind of notice how it feels, and feel free to come out of it earlier if you need to. And then just starting to notice your breath here. So at first, we don't want to do anything to it except for notice it. Notice that breath just coming in and out. Maybe you start to slow it down just a little bit. See if you can lengthen out the inhales and the exhales. And then maybe, if it's comfortable for you, you start to notice those pauses. Maybe first noticing the one after you exhale, if there is one, and then noticing the one after you inhale, if there is one. So you're not trying to make those pauses any longer. You're not trying to hold your breath at all. You're just becoming aware of them. The experience of, oh, there is a little pause there. There is a little spot. where nothing's happening. So those are the spots that I'm going to encourage you to focus on as we go through the practice. Small pause after the exhale. Small pause after the inhale. But if at any time that starts to feel uncomfortable or cause anxiety or anything like that, just go back to focusing on the inhale and the exhale and let that go. Maybe only revisiting it if you feel really calm. We'll just take about 1 more minute here. Seeing if you can continue to focus on that breath, maybe on the pause. So from here, we'll start to lift back up, coming back up to your tabletop and move props out of your way. Bringing those knees under your hips and hands under your shoulders. Might feel really nice to take some movement, so maybe a few cat-cows here. Arching the spine and then rounding. Moving slowly back and forth between those two spaces. You might notice your breath as you move. Notice any differences that you experience when you're moving versus still. You might be curious about whether you can still experience those pauses when you're moving. Just taking one more round. And then returning to that neutral spine, we're going to go ahead and come all the way to our stomachs. So just setting yourself up however you need to get down there, nice and slowly. Take your time. And then you could put your forehead right on your hands, on that little triangle you form, or you could bring your elbows wide and a cheek to the mat. Either option, totally fine, or any other version of this that feels good. If for any reason being on your belly is very uncomfortable for you, totally fine to take this on your side as well. I like this space again for experiencing the breath because of how much contact we have with the front of our bodies on the mat, and that ability to really experience the physical sensation of breathing as the whole front of your body presses into the mat when you inhale and then releases when you exhale. It's a really nice um, physical reminder of the breath and experiencing it in the body. So again, I want to take a couple of minutes here just to settle in, give yourself time to be still, no rush, no pressure. Give yourself time to start experiencing that breath. And maybe you play with noticing those pauses again. From here, we're going to move into a little shoulder opener, opening the front of the body. So we'll just bring one arm out to the side. It can be straight out or it could be down a little bit at an angle with your palm facing down if that's comfortable for you. And then you're just going to roll onto that same side and bring knees up, stacking knees, finding a comfortable spot for your head. Do that on the other side so you can see what the front looks like. So that arm is out behind me. Knees are stacked, coming onto my side. And then I'm just going to place a small bolster under my head. You might have something, a bolster or a pillow that you place under your head or your arm, or you might have your head all the way down on the mat. Just whatever's comfortable. I'm going to encourage you to not take a really intense version of this. So you notice my upper body is still rolled a little bit more toward the mat. So I'm not really making this an extreme stretch for the arm. It's just a really gentle opening. If you need any props for your knees, maybe a bolster between the knees or blocks, totally fine. Go ahead and add anything you need here to get comfortable. Then just trying to settle in again. Find that space for stillness. Noticing your breath. always start with just noticing the inhales and exhales. Then maybe just take a glance at those pauses, see if they're there. Maybe start to play around with noticing the difference in the pause between or right after the exhale and the one right after the inhale. Maybe one is there and one is not. Maybe one is longer than the other. And just something to be curious about, not to force it all, just noticing it. So for me, I have this long pause that happens after I exhale, then a really tiny short one after I inhale. Just something I notice. Make sure you stay tuned in to what's going on in that shoulder and hand as well as you're experiencing this breath. If there's any numbness or tingling that starts to happen in that hand, you can always back off a little bit more or even come out of it completely. To come out of this one, we'll just roll back onto our bellies if that's comfortable for you. Again, you could always just roll onto your side again if you prefer. And then maybe taking a little movement, a little gentle rock for the hips side to side. Might feel nice to just make some fists with your hands or rotate wrists or take a little movement for your hands and fingers. And then when you feel ready, we'll go ahead and take that on the other side. So I'm just going to turn so that I'm not facing away from the camera. We'll bring that opposite arm out to the side, the palm facing down, and then roll onto that side. Again, you can place a block, prop under your head, or just bring your head down to the mat or rest it on your forearm. Whatever's comfortable here. And again, I'm just taking a really gentle version of this. I'm not trying to make a very intense stretch for that shoulder, just a gentle opening. Maybe noticing that space, noticing that opening, gentle stretch. Making sure that it's not too intense, making sure that it feels fine. If you want to play, you can the palm facing down is going to be a little more intense stretch than palm facing up. So you want to play with that difference. You can take your palm down and then roll it up and see which feels better. And just settling into stillness again. Maybe coming back to noticing your breath. You might notice where you feel that breath in your body. If you feel a little movement in that space that's opening the front of the shoulder. And maybe take the time to tune into those pauses, just experiencing them without trying to force them, lengthen them, or do anything to them, just glancing at them, just noticing them. Be here for about 1 more minute on this side. Again, just tune in to that hand behind you, making sure there's still sensation there, no tingling or numbness happening. Make any adjustments that you need to make. We'll move out of this one same way, rolling back onto your belly. Move any props out of your way. Maybe taking a little movement again, gentle rock for the hips, making some fists and releasing. Maybe moving your shoulders a little bit. Just move around a little, doing what feels right. From here, we're going to take the opposite stretch. So just lifting your upper body up slightly. We're going to slide one arm under the other and come down to the back of that shoulder this time. And again, maybe you bring that pillow or prop under your head here. So we're stretching that shoulder in the opposite direction, opening for the back of the shoulder. So you can be completely on your belly here, and that's going to be fairly intense. Or you could scooch a little bit more onto your side to lessen up that intensity a little bit. I like to have my palm facing up here. Just bring that opposite arm to a comfortable spot. Maybe just a soft bend to the elbow. You could bring in that forearm under your head. You could bring that other arm behind your back if you wanted to. So lots of different options there for that arm. Just play with the spot that feels right. Again, we're not going for the most intense sensation here. We're just going for a really restorative place where we can just settle in. Then you might notice how that feels on the back of that shoulder blade. You might notice if you can feel or experience your breath in the back of your body. It can be a really interesting, different space to feel your breath. We tend to think of the breath as the front of the body, but it's really three-dimensional. It expands the body in all directions. Maybe notice if you can feel a little bit of movement that happens in that shoulder blade as you breathe in and out. And if you're loving that exploration of the pauses in your breath, feel free to come back to that anytime. Feel free to let it go if it's not the exploration that you want to take this morning. Always just experience the breath, where you're feeling the breath in your body. Let's take about 5 more breaths here. Maybe you count those breaths. See how slow you can breathe in and out. So from here, we're going to actually just go ahead and roll into a twist. So just keeping that bottom arm right where it is, we're going to go ahead and come onto our sides and bring our knees up, stacking those knees. And then we're going to take that opposite arm out behind us to start to find a twist for the upper body. Just kind of rolling right into that twist. And then you might let that arm come down to the mat behind you, maybe down to your side or maybe to a prop, maybe to a bolster or pillow. And I'm not going to be picky at all about your hips or your knees. If your hip rolls back, if your knees come apart and you need to place something between them, that's totally fine. Again, we're not going for the most intense version of a twist. We're going for the most comfortable version of a twist for your body, for yourself. That spot where you can just really relax, really settle into this. Feel that gentle opening, that gentle twist. Noticing that openness that happens here in this space, particularly after we've been on our bellies for a while. So the front of our bellies have been, the front of our bodies have been a little compressed. And then we roll into this twist with a kind of opening, a heart opening and expansion. It can be a really lovely sensation. Maybe just noticing that. And then you might notice if your breath feels different or if you feel it in a different place in your body. And again, you might explore the length of your breath, the difference between the inhales and exhales, or the pauses at the top and bottom. Just take one more minute here, guys. Again, always listen to your body. If you need to come out of one of the forms early, totally fine. Otherwise, just continuing to notice, to tune in, experience that breath, that opening. So to come out of this twist, I encourage you to come back onto your side first, so kind of closing that twist up. Maybe taking a pause on your side just for a second, just releasing that twist. And then we're going to come back onto our bellies and repeat that um, sequence on the other side. So again, I'm just going to switch spots so that I don't face away from the camera. And then we'll come back onto our bellies, and we're going to slide the opposite arm underneath, whichever one we did last time, and find our shoulder stretch first. Again, setting this up so that it's comfortable for yourself, maybe a prop or small pillow under your head. And just notice the intensity on the back of that shoulder. If it's too much, just roll a little bit more onto your side. You can ease that intensity up a little bit. Just find that spot that feels just right to settle into stillness. And again, you might notice the difference between that last form where we were in that heart opening, shoulder opening space, the front of the body, versus this space where we're really compressed. Front of the body is a little compressed, stretches in the back of the body, in the back of the shoulder. Maybe just notice how that feels physically, and you might explore the difference in your breath between those two spaces. For me, it just makes me notice the breath in the back of my body more here versus the front of my body in the twist. It's just interesting to notice and experience. So we'll take a couple of minutes here, settling into that space for stillness and reflection on the breath and the body. About 3 more breaths. The shoulder opener. And then we'll go ahead and roll on into that twist again. So keeping bottom arm where it is, rolling onto your side, bringing knees up, and then we can take that twist for the upper body, letting that top arm come out behind you. Maybe you bring it down to the mat or to a prop. Again, if that top hip rocks back a little bit, no big deal. Just finding that really comfortable twist for your body. Finding a comfortable spot for your head. I've noticed that a small pillow or bolster under my head makes my twist so much more comfortable and accessible. So you might play with that. And find that space for yourself where you can settle into stillness. Really tune into that difference. Such a huge difference for me between that pressed front of the body on the mat to this really expansive opening for the chest in the front of the body. Maybe pausing to notice that and see how it feels to you. And then you might just notice the breath again, where you feel it in your body. Anytime it feels good to keep exploring those pauses at the top and the bottom, keep coming back to that, or just revisiting it, re-glancing at it, seeing how it feels to experience those spaces. Just about one more minute here. Just giving yourself all the space and time to experience that breath opening. But if at any point you need to stop and just move into something different, that's fine as well. Maybe just counting 5 more really slow inhales and exhales. Again, coming out of this, maybe just by coming back onto your side first, bringing that top arm across. You might take a pause there on your side, just your spine, come back to that neutral position. And then from here, we're going to press up to seated. We've been lying down for a while, so please take your time. Come up nice and slow. Make sure you don't get dizzy in that space of coming up. Continuing to breathe. I'm going to bring legs around in front. So we're going to go ahead and move into butterfly here. So if you want to just go ahead and bring the soles of the feet together and find your butterfly, totally fine. If you want to take some other movement, if you want to just wiggle around a little bit, shake out your legs, move your spine, like little mini twists, anything that you want to do, grab a sip of water. No rush at all. When you feel ready, we'll go ahead and meet in that butterfly. So we're going to try to bring our spines up nice and tall. I'm going to just really support myself here. So maybe you bring some blocks, books, or any other props that you have handy under those legs so that we can just really relax the leg, not have to worry about any tension in the insides of the legs to hold those legs in place. If you need a couple of blocks or to add some books, anything that you need there just to make this really comfortable. And then we'll find a forward fold here. So lots of different options for a forward fold. You can just roll down, just kind of let your shoulders and head be heavy. You could roll down and then lean forward a little bit and see how that feels. Or you could intentionally rock forward from the hips and then round the spine. So play around with whichever version feels right for you, or maybe it's somewhere in between all of those. Again, if you have props and you want to use them to place under your head or your upper body to come down to, totally fine. So finding that spot for your body that's just right, taking your time, and then you might tune into the back of your body here. Maybe tune into letting your head be really heavy. Seeing if you can feel that expansion in the back of the neck, that stretch. You might tune into that space between the shoulder blades. Noticing gentle, hopefully just gentle stretch in the low back. If it's more intense than gentle, maybe you just back off a little bit, sitting back up. And then maybe noticing your breath here. You might notice, again, if you can really feel the breath in the back of the body, that expansion that happens, that opening as you inhale, and then releasing as you exhale. Each exhale might bring a little bit more feeling of relaxation, maybe a slight deepening, holding in. Maybe just taking about 5 more breaths in that forward fold. And then when you feel ready, slowly, slowly taking your time, coming back up. You might move those props out of your way if you have props under your knees and bring those knees back together. Maybe you bring your hands behind and just windshield wiper your knees side to side, just taking a little movement for those hips, gentle opening for the front of the body. From here, when you feel ready, we'll go ahead and move on to our backs. So just have props handy. I'm going to have, we're going to move into a supported bridge. So I'm going to use my small bolster this morning to place under my hip. You might use a block instead, or a couple of books. You might even have a rolled up towel or blanket. So whatever works for you. Again, we're going for kind of a gentle version of this morning. So I'm going to use the bolster so that I have some give, so that I can just really sink into it. If you prefer something harder like a block or books, that's totally fine. So when you feel ready, just coming down to your back, and then maybe just hug your knees in, take a little gentle rock side to side. You might move your knees around in a circle a little bit, just taking a little movement for those hips and legs. And then we'll just, when you're ready, bring soles of the feet down to the mat. Trying to line the heels up right under the knees. And then bringing arms down by your sides, we'll just press into those feet and lift the hips up just a little bit. I'm just going to lift them up enough that I can slide my bolster under and then lower those hips back down. So again, that could be your block there instead. And you want it lined up under the hips, not just under the low back, but right under your hips. We're lowering those hips down. Arms are down by your side. Your whole spine should be lifted just a little bit. And this is really a great spot to be able to tune into the breath in the front of the body, into the belly, a little bit into the hips. Just start to notice, maybe you notice that in this space, your breath drops down a little lower in your body. Maybe not, just something to be curious about. And then just see if you can come back to that stillness, the experience of the long, slow inhales and exhales. Maybe coming back to noticing those pauses again at the top and bottom of the breath. It would feel good to you to explore extending one leg or both legs here to open the front of the body a little bit further. You could play around with that, just noticing what happens in the low back. If it's too intense, maybe you just extend one leg or maybe neither leg. Just noticing what's happening in that low back and making sure there's no pain there. Just take about another minute here. So if you want to switch legs back and forth a little bit and play around with that opening, feel free. If you want to have both legs extended here. From here, we're going to play with extending both legs up toward the ceiling for little imaginary legs up the wall. So you might start by bringing both knees back in and then bringing knees in towards your chest, and then see how it would feel to lift both feet up toward the ceiling. And you might need to readjust your prop a little bit or even come off of that prop if that would feel more comfortable here. So just play around a little bit. I just needed to scoot my prop up a little bit further so we could settle into that space. Just extending those legs up. Notice I have a nice bend to my knees here. There's no need to straighten the legs all the way. Doesn't matter whether the feet are a little bit of an angle or a little bit further up toward the ceiling. And just take your time. Find the spot that feels best to you. And then notice that breath again. It can be a really great place to notice if you can feel sensation in your hips as you breathe in and out. So it might even be a little bit of a gentle rock that happens. It can also be a really fun place to explore if you notice those pauses. Here, we'll just start to bring those feet back down, bending the knees, again, maybe hugging knees in towards your chest a little bit. And then maybe bring both feet down to the mat, nice and slow. If that prop is still under you, you can maybe press into your feet, lifting those hips back up and just slide that out of the way. And it might feel really good to give your knees a hug one more time, curling the back in the opposite direction, lifting your hips a little bit, kind of rounding the low back. Maybe a gentle rock for a little massage for that low back. And from here, we'll go ahead and settle into our final form this morning. So your Shavasana, whatever that means for you. For me, I'm just going to move into a little reclined butterfly. So I'm just bringing the soles of the feet together and knees open, arms down by my sides. You can take any version though. You can just extend your legs out long or take actual legs up the wall if you have a wall handy. Just settle into a spot that feels just right for you, using any props that you need, want to use to help support you. Just finding a space for yourself that feels really good. If you decide to take this on your back, you might play around this morning with bringing one hand to your belly and one hand to your chest, just for a moment, maybe a minute of that exploration. If it feels okay, comfortable to you to close your eyes, you might go ahead and close your eyes or just find a soft gaze on the ceiling. And then maybe you just explore feeling the breath here. Maybe you notice which hand you feel movement under in your chest or your belly. Maybe it's both. Maybe one is a little bit more pronounced than the other. It can be an interesting thing to explore with the breath. If you were having a little trouble finding those pauses, this can be a great space to really notice those pauses, just by noticing when the movement stops in your body at the top and at the bottom, and kind of tuning into those spots and noticing that those are your pauses in your breath. So you might play around with just taking maybe 5 more of those here, noticing that space, those pauses, noticing anything that you are curious about in exploring your breath. And you can just let that go. Maybe just letting hands come down by your sides, or if you want to keep your hands there, if that's comfortable for you, totally fine. Giving yourself a little space now to just let go, even of observing the breath. Nothing that you need to do here right now, or just let go and be. You might start to just tune into your breath one more time, just noticing. You notice how slowly you're breathing right now. Notice how you feel, how your body feels. You take one more moment just to notice those pauses in your breath. You inhale, pause, exhale. When you feel ready, you might start to take a little movements. Maybe your fingers, toes. If you're in that reclined butterfly like me, you might bring the knees back together. Take a stretch. Or hug your knees. Anything that feels good, just to start to move a little bit again. Then in your own time, when you feel ready, we'll go ahead and meet in seated. Just take your time, come up slowly, no rush. Thank you so much and enjoy your the rest of your day and your weekend.